What would you say was one of the most impactful pieces of technology invented during the Second World War? Something that influenced design choices and our lives in ways we never think of. Stick around as we explore a groundbreaking piece of equipment that was a proven leap ahead in technology and application. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Jaxom Talks channel. Imagine a war-torn sky, dominated by propeller-driven machines, P-51 Mustangs, Spitfires, B-17 Flying Fortresses. Now, picture something different. A sleek, futuristic shadow, screaming past everything else, 100 miles an hour faster than its nearest rival. This isn't a sci-fi concept. This was the Messerschmitt Me 6.2 Schwalbe, the Swallow, the world's first operational jet fighter. It was a technological leap so vast. It changed aviation forever. But this isn't just a story about speed. It's a tragic tale of brilliance crippled by politics, a machine too advanced for its time, and ultimately, the jet that arrived too late to save the war it was built for. Today, we're diving deep into the history of the Me 6.2, from its audacious design concept in 1938 to its devastating, yet limited, impact in the final year of World War II. Part 1. The Audacity of Speed 1938 to 1941. The story begins not with a war machine, but with a question: how do we go faster? By 1938, Willy Messerschmitt's team, led by engineer Robert Lusser, understood that the propeller was the limiting factor. The idea was Project P-1065, a new airframe designed specifically around two revolutionary concepts: swept back wings for high-speed stability and, crucially, turbine engines. They knew they needed to break the sound barrier's little brother. The speed of propeller tip rotation and the jet engine was the only way to achieve this. The airframe itself was a marvel of clean, efficient design. But the Achilles heel of the entire project wasn't the airframe. It was the engine. The German jet program was plagued by engine woes. Initial prototypes were meant to use the BMW 003, but those were unreliable, overheating, and prone to flameouts. They eventually settled on the Junkers Jumo 004. This was a true technological breakthrough, the first mass-produced axial flow turbojet. This was a revolutionary piece of technology, but also the Me 6.2's greatest weakness. The Jumo 004 was an axial flow turbojet, a design that was incredibly advanced for its time. It worked by sucking air in, then compressing it through a series of spinning blades, mixing it with fuel and then igniting it to produce a powerful jet of hot gas. But mass-produced is a generous term. These engines were constructed with strategic materials like chromium and nickel in severely limited supply. German engineers had to substitute these with lesser materials, like plain steel and ceramics. The result was that the Jumo 004 had a lifespan of only about 50 hours, sometimes far less. If a pilot wasn't careful with the throttle, slamming it open or shut, the engine would self-destruct. It made flying the 262 less like piloting an aircraft and more like juggling two highly volatile pressure cookers. Part 2. The Moment of Truth and the Bomber Blunder. The true birth of the jet age came on July 18, 1942. Test pilot Fritz Wendel took the Me 6.2 V3 prototype into the sky, powered solely by two Jumo 004 jets. The flight was flawless. Wendel returned to the ground with a declaration. The aircraft leapt forward. It was exhilarating. The result was immense thrust, pushing the Me 6.2 up to speeds approaching 540 miles per hour. However, building these engines was a nightmare. As mentioned before, they required rare, high-temperature resistant metals like nickel and chromium, materials that war-torn Germany was desperately short of. The speed advantage was undeniable. At a demonstration for the Reich Air Ministry, the Me 6.2 outclassed every piston engine fighter in the Luftwaffe. Senior pilot Adolf Galland famously declared, "It was like being pushed by an angel." The path to mass production seemed clear. The Me 6.2 was a pure interceptor, designed to destroy the Allied bomber fleets. But that's where politics intervened, turning the 262's development from a technological triumph into a strategic tragedy. In November 1943, Adolf Hitler saw the 262 and became infatuated with its speed. But he didn't see a fighter. He saw a Blitzbomber, a high-speed attack aircraft capable of penetrating enemy defenses and delivering a small payload, primarily in response to the Allied invasion threat. He issued a direct, unequivocal command: the Me 6.2 must be produced as a bomber, the A2- variant. This order was catastrophic. It diverted resources, forced Messerschmitt to redesign the nose to accommodate bomb shackles, and most critically wasted precious months. By the time Luftwaffe commanders successfully convinced Hitler to focus on the fighter role, the Me 6.2 won a Schwalbe, the Allied bombing campaign was already reaching a fever pitch. The delay cost Germany the chance to deploy the jet in significant numbers when it might have genuinely tipped the scales. Part 3. The Swallow in Combat 1944 to 1945. When the Me-262 finally entered service in 1944, it was an absolute monster in the air. Its top speed of over 540 miles per hour or 870 kilometers per hour gave it an almost insurmountable advantage over the top speed of 430 miles per hour of the P-51. Allied pilots simply couldn't catch it. The primary fighter variant, the A-1A, was armed with 4 fearsome 30mm Mark 108 cannons, capable of destroying a heavy bomber with just a few hits. But speed didn't mean invincibility. It brought its own set of challenges. Flying the Me-262 was notoriously difficult. Not only did the pilot have to nurse the unreliable engines, but the jet's high operating speeds meant it was poor in a traditional dogfight. If a 262 tried to turn sharply with a propeller plane, it would bleed energy rapidly and become vulnerable. Their tactic became known as the high-speed slash or boom and zoom. They would approach the bomber formations at altitude, dive in for a lightning-fast firing pass, and then use their speed to escape immediately. Later, they were equipped with the innovative R-4M, unguided rockets, a weapon designed specifically for the jet. They could launch a salvo of these rockets from outside the range of the bomber's defensive guns, then finish the job with the cannons. The stats are grimly impressive. Adolf Galland claimed that a single jet was worth 5 piston-engined fighters. Unit-wise, the official kill ratio against Allied aircraft was around 4 kills for 1 loss. They were devastatingly effective. Part 4. The vulnerability and the vicious cycle. If the jet couldn't be beaten in the air, the Allies realized they had to beat it on the ground. The Me-262's high takeoff and landing speeds around 120 miles per hour made it a sitting duck for Allied escort fighters. The moment the 262 pilot reduced throttle for approach, the engines were at their most sensitive, and the plane was slow and vulnerable. Allied fighter groups, nicknamed killer squadrons, began to patrol the known jet airfields. They didn't engage the 262s high up. They waited for them to come home. This created a vicious cycle for the Luftwaffe. They needed speed to avoid the Allied fighters, but that speed came at the cost of fuel and range. They could barely stay aloft long enough to intercept the bombers, let alone engage in extended combat. By 1945, the situation was compounded by a severe shortage of skilled pilots. While the Me-262 required specialized training, fuel shortages and the desperate state of the war meant inexperienced pilots were often rushed into the cockpit. The consequences of this were severe. An average Jumo 004 engine had a service life of only 10 to 25 hours. Sometimes they would fail after just a few flights. For the pilots, this was terrifying. Engine flameouts, turbine blade failures, and fires were a constant threat. Starting the engines was a complex and delicate procedure, and throttling them too quickly could cause them to stall or catch fire. Many of the recorded losses were simply operational failures, accidents, engine flameouts, or running out of fuel. The tragic reality is that while approximately 1,430 Me-262s were produced, only about 200 to 300 ever reached operational status at any one time, and far fewer pilots were trained to fly them effectively. Part 5. The variants and the unending legacy. While the fighter variant is the most famous, the 262 platform gave rise to several other interesting, if short-lived, versions. The Me-262, A2, a Sturmvogel or Stormbird, the bomber variant, carrying 2 550-pound bombs, ineffective due to stability issues and small payload. The Me-262, a 1AU4, Jagdflieger or Hunter, a massive upgrade featuring a single, enormous 50mm cannon in the nose. This was an experimental anti-bomber weapon, though few were ever used. Me-262, B1, AU1, the 2-seat night fighter. Equipped with a radar, it was typically flown by a pilot and a radar operator. This variant only saw limited success against Allied night raids. But the 262's true lasting legacy wasn't in the planes it shot down. It was in the planes it inspired. After Germany's surrender, Allied forces scrambled to capture every piece of Me-262 technology they could. The design was one of the key blueprints for the entire post-war jet era. Captured Me-262s, codenamed Operation Lusty by the Americans, were studied, stripped down, and reverse-engineered. The design directly influenced the development of early American jets like the P-80 Shooting Star, the Republic F-84 Thunderjet. It also influenced the sweep-wing concept of the F-86 Sabre and the Soviet MiG-15 jets that would define the Korean War. The entire principle of high-speed aerodynamics, the configuration of the engine nacelles, and the swept wing were validated by the Me-262. It was arguably the most significant piece of technology developed by the losing side of World War II. Conclusion: a glimpse of the future. The Me-262 Schwalbe was the perfect metaphor for the end of the war, a flash of brilliant, world-changing technology, undermined by political short-sightedness, material shortages, and a fundamental inability to adapt production fast enough. It was too fast for its enemies, but ultimately, it was too late for its creators. It achieved operational success, downed hundreds of Allied planes, and terrified bomber crews, but it never achieved the numbers required to change the strategic outcome of the war. So what do you think? Was the Me-262's deployment bungled entirely by Hitler's bomber obsession, or were the engine limitations always going to make it too little, too late? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into the dawn of the jet age, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.